1986 was a dark year for Mamelodi activists Dr. Fabian Ribeiro and his wife Florence. In March that year, their house was firebombed. Eyewitnesses said that the SADF were the culprits. About 6 months later, there was an attempt to bomb the surgery. The third attempt on their lives, by gunmen on the 1st of December, was successful.
There were 2 blacks and 1 white person, and a third black was waiting in a getaway car. But I won't be able to identify them, if I see them and say, no, these are them.
Chris Ribeiro was the first person on the scene. He was standing in the street when he saw them coming out of the yard. They shot at him, and he ran back to the house, where he found his parents.
And when I came in, I found my father slumped at the drain, and my mother lying over here, spread eagled here. My father was lying over here. His one leg this way and the other one like crumpled under him, and was with his back against the wall. My father had about 20-15 bullet holes in his head. I held my mother in my arms and she just sighed, and that was the last breath.
10 years later, Brigadier Jacques Cronje told the committee that he was requested by Special Forces to compile a memorandum on Dr. Ribeiro's activities.
Hechter het my later meegedeel dat spesmagte hom versoek het spesifiek Charles Nodie en een van sy manne, Noel Roby, om hulle behulpsaam te wees met beplanning om Dr. Ribeiro te elimineer.
The Land Rover that picked up the men were registered in the name of Noel Roby, a Special Forces agent.
Voorval na die daad gepleeg is, het ek van kaptein Hechter verneem dat 2 swart Angolese wat deur spesmagte ingevlieg is van iewers in Suidwes, dokter en mevrou Ribeiro geskiet het.
Hechter did not tell the commission more, and to the Ribeiros, the information that did come out did not help much. They still don't know who killed their parents. In the same year that the Ribeiros were assassinated, in 1986, Piet Ntuli was Minister of the Interior in the former homeland of KwaNdebele. He was put there by the South African government, but then they lost control over him. As Jacques Cronje tells it, Ntuli became leader of Mbokoto, a reactionary vigilante group, and turned it into his own personal army. They instigated boycotts and committed arson and murder. Ntuli was also suspected of flirting with the ANC.
Ek het daarna 'n opdrag ontvang dat Piet Ntuli geëlimineer moes word vanweë die feit dat hy die gebied in KwaNdebele gedestabiliseer het en in werklikheid die ANC se doelwitte daar bevorder het.
Cronje is not sure where the decision to eliminate Ntuli came from. It could have been the Security Forces Counter-Insurgency Unit Tribits, or it could have been the Joint Information Center, in which case it would have been confirmed by the State Security Council.
Spesmagte het die bom van ons ontwerp.
Who in particular was involved?
Hulle het 'n tegniese afdeling, wie dit gedoen het, weet ek nie, maar die bom is deur Jacques aan kaptein Hechter oorhandig.
The secretive Joe Verster was the commander of the CCB.
Die bom in die besonder was gebou gewees van plastiese springstof, ongeveer 4 kilogram.
U het persoonlik die bom gemonteer, is dit korrek?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
I personally, I cannot forgive them.
As in the case of the Ribeiros, the Ntulis want to know who gave the orders. Members of the SADF Special Forces and the CCB have to explain their involvement. and senior police members have to explain why they covered up investigations. The remaining mysteries may only be cleared up when those implicated appear before the committee in February next year.
He was a Catholic priest, but also a prominent leader of the United Democratic Front. But for the South African police, he was a communist and an ANC supporter, and therefore a legitimate target for elimination. Father Smangaliso Mkachwa, today Deputy Minister of Education, would say that God was with him because he lived to hear two former policemen describe their attempts to kill him.
There is no doubt that the Northern Transvaal Security Branch unit was an effective and slick hit squad machine. But in what might be called divine intervention, one of its prime targets, a pastor from Shoshanguve, escaped 2 assassination attempts. Father Smangaliso Mkachwa, who had for 18 years preached both the Bible and politics to his flock, heard for the first time this week how he had come to be the state's target.
I have to deduce that this would have been the only reason why it was decided that Father Mkachwa had to be eliminated. That it must have been due to his involvement with youth and their violent actions subsequently. That would have been the only way in which to neutralize such violent actions.
The plan was to assassinate him on his arrival at Durban Airport. Special rifles with silencers were assembled for the hit.
And as Father Mkachwa walked closer and became ever clearer, this woman was in between him and us all the time, which meant that we could not fire on him. Mr. van Vuren, who grew up on the farm, would have been the shot. Subsequently, when he had passed us, we decided that we would follow him to see if we could not eliminate him along the road with an AK-47 rifle.
The AK-47 was never put to use. Because of a driver's slowness at the exit point, the assassins lost their target. This is the man who passed on the instruction, Captain Flip Lewitz, who was then Hechter's immediate superior. Lewitz claimed that the order came directly from General Basie Smith.
I want to say categorically, I'm not involved. I've never been involved. As I put it to Judge Goldstone, not today, not tomorrow, not in a million years, I was involved.
In 1988, General Smith came up with a second bizarre execution plan.
Then Brigadier Smith gave instructions to myself and Warrant Officer Paul van Vuren, calling us to his office and being aware of our covert operations, called us to his office and gave us instructions to plant a quantity of Mandrix tablets on Bishop or on Father Mkachwa, and that we had to force some down his throat so that it would appear as if he died from an overdose.
When I moved into the hall and saw the 5 gentlemen for the first time, and when Captain Hechter stood up and stretched out his hand, I had ambivalent feelings. The first feeling was one of uncertainty, of hesitation, but also of deep skepticism, for the simple reason that the last time, I think, when Captain Hechter and I met, he had a gun in his hand pointed at my forehead. Doors were broken down. That's how he, Captain Lewis, and others gained entry. At the same time, because of my deep-felt belief as a Christian, but because also of the policy of the government of national unity. They made emphasis on reconciliation and building a new nation. My second sentiment immediately said to me, stretch out your hand and meet Captain Hechter.